and we are live, I guess. So, welcome everybody. Good evening, good morning, whatever it is for you. And I am really grateful that you tuned in for the episode number 12 of our talks with Raphael. And as you can see, there's no Raphael here, but he's going to be joining in a minute. And for those of you who've never seen this before or who just stumbled upon this on your LinkedIn feed, YouTube, whatever it is, this is a weekly series of the talks between me and my good friend, where we discuss personal growth, our struggles related to it, and some tips and tricks we learned along the way. So I'm going to start with introducing the topic for the day. Today, as you may be able to see from the description, we are going to focus mainly on measuring progress and tracking progress when it comes to personal growth. And I'd say that's not an easy feat because personal growth is something relatively subtle. I'd say it's not always straightforward to understand whether or not you can put a number on it. Some people might even say that putting a number on personal growth is tricky because that means it will suck out all the joy from life as a journey and progress and fun. And we're gonna cover both of these angles of it and probably more. Last time in the last episodes, both me and Raphael mentioned that tracking the progress in some way can be beneficial. So before Raphael joins, I'm gonna cover a few ways I was trying to track my progress and how it worked for me. So okay, it seems I have some audio issues. Good to know. So let me see what we get there. There we go. Rafael, you're live, and I heard I have some audio issues, so let me fix it and hand it over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I apologize for any audio issues, and I didn't even know what our topic was, so I can measure. But now I know. How do you measure your personal growth? Well, when you're signing in several minutes late to a live stream, how panicky are you getting? So today, not very panicky. Although
Let's get into it, Raphael. I was here for 3 minutes, and my personal growth here is being able to enable my microphone. So thank you, Jana, for this. I was just blubbering here for nothing, but thank you for saving me here. And what I said is that we're going to talk about when measuring makes sense, when it doesn't make sense, what experience we have with that, and if this could be done in a subtle way, so it doesn't suck out, the joy and spontaneity from the life of us, and also from the journey of the growth. We're probably going to touch up on transformation as well, won't we?
We will definitely touch on transformation. And your audio is back. You sound amazing, Alesh. So bam, we're in it. I think I'd like to share with you, Alesh, that apparently sugar and YouTube was not enough for me. And so I am on day 3 with no caffeine now. It was a gradual weaning the week prior. We can get into why I'm doing that maybe in a little bit, but I got to tell you, it has been really, really hard. And I have a little bit of a second wind right now. I've just taken a very cold shower. So I'm feeling about as good as I've felt the last few days, but it's been kind of like wearing a lead jumpsuit. And I am just kind of blown away with how different I feel. I mean, it's not totally shocking. I've been drinking caffeine for many, many decades, like probably many of our viewers and yourself has. I think something like 70% of adults globally consume some form of caffeine on a daily basis, whether energy drink, tea, coffee, or otherwise. And so this is a little experiment of mine. I have taken short breaks from caffeine, but usually no more than a few days. And I usually do a kind of gradual wean. I mix a little bit of, I grind decaf beans with my normal beans and decrease the amount of regular over the course of a few days. And I'm doing this as I'm preparing for a medicine work ceremony with some plant medicine on the weekend. And so I like to clear my body of any other substances before venturing into that realm. So if I'm off my game today, I can blame the lack of coffee.
Very much so. So I can't do that. I had a truckload already, and now I'm having tea, which is supposed to be caffeinated. But yeah, whatever. When I'm off today, it's because I'm off. So
Okay,
no
no
excuses for
excuses.
me.
Well, me too. I've got a little bit of decaf coffee here, and I like to put some lion's mane mushrooms and coconut powder in my coffee. So this was my way to continue with those supplements without completely giving it up. And I think my brain is, I think it was tricked by the buzz of the coffee grinder and the ritual of the preparation, because as soon as I started preparing this decaf, it was like I suddenly felt more awake. And I'm sure I'll collapse sometime after we finish streaming, or maybe halfway through even.
Yeah, maybe if you collapse halfway through, this could go viral. So I would seriously consider
That would be
it.
good. Okay. All right. I won't hold back then.
Anyway, let's actually start right there. So you mentioned cutting off more and more things. Our viewers may know that I'm trying with sugar and YouTube. It's kind of working for me, and it is something that could work as a measure of progress. So one way to measure progress, maybe, and this is probably the simplest one, one of these, don't break the chain methods when you are just putting crosses on your calendar. Sometimes it's called the Seinfeld method, when you are just trying to have a streak
Yes.
of days not doing something that is a habit that is harmful, or doing something that is beneficial for you. This could be a number you can put on your personal growth, but there are caveats, aren't there, Raphael?
There are, and it can be viewed as a crutch. So I'm glad you brought the streak. I think we've talked about this previously. When I started using the Waking Up app with Sam Harris, there was a streak feature. And about 2 years into using the app, he removed it. And it wasn't so subtle. He made an announcement about it. And it was kind of like, you're welcome. You don't need it. And interestingly enough, they looked at the user data from people using the app and found that there were people like myself who had not missed a day in a couple of years. And I think it's safe to say for myself that there was a part of me that felt a sense of pride with the streak. So I didn't want to lose that streak. So I think it's safe to say that had that streak feature not been included in the app, there's a very good chance that I would have not been as consistent. And perhaps I would have dropped it altogether and said, oh, well, there's no streak to keep. So is that a crutch? Probably. But the way I see it is that's a way to trick myself into doing something that I know is beneficial. So Drops, the language learning app, is another one. I think I'm at 450 days now, and Duolingo coming up to a year and this week actually. So is it a crutch? Maybe. But if that's what it takes to kind of create that deep groove and continue with a habit, then is that really a problem? I'm not sure. For me, I'll take it. I'll take the crutch, and if it keeps me going with my habits. Now, some things just become easier to do than not to do at some point. So, for instance, I've been, as you know, practicing yoga for many years, about 4 or 5 years, pretty much every day, sometimes more than once in a day. And I don't keep track at this point. There are days I do a couple of practices. Maybe I had a big workout in a hike one day and I didn't really do a formal practice that day. So at some point we become accustomed to doing something and we can just continue. But to not get too sidetracked, I think that having a streak can be an incredibly useful way to just look at the calendar and go, my only job, and this is how Seinfeld put it, his only job is to not break the line of red X's on his calendar. So he marks a red X, and he does this till this day, a red X every day that he writes. So that's the job. Doesn't matter how good it is. Doesn't matter what he writes. His job is to write. And when he writes, he marks a red X. So his job is not to break the chain. And what a wonderful little technique. I've certainly found it useful. I highly recommend you experiment with it yourself for whatever habit you are looking to do or undo.
No, sounds good to me. And we're gonna dive deeper into this. I think that what is important for me is the word crutch you use. So crutch, that's an ugly term, but what I see is we all need crutches at some point, to progress. Rather than crutch, I would say aid or a springboard, maybe, rather than crutch, because crutch implies you are maimed,
handicapped,
or something's wrong with you.
Sure. Yeah. I like that. And really, it can just be a way to measure, right? Like if we're looking to make something a consistent habit, I mean, we're not marking an X every day that we brush our teeth, but we know we're going to do that at least 2 times a day, hopefully. And so at least in the beginning, the first month or 2 months while you're getting into something, I think it can be very useful. And I think the reason why Sam removed that and decided, you don't need this, is because he likely felt like people were missing the point, right? The point wasn't to have this shiny medallion that says, look, I meditate every day. It's the experience, that the benefits that you get from a daily meditation practice. But for someone like myself, having that streak ensured that I had some sense of accountability. It felt good because seeing 400 and X amount of days there versus that if you miss that day, it will reset and go to 0. And there's something very annoying about that 0 when you've been working so diligently to develop this habit. So I think it's a great way to trick your mind, if you will, into complying with what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's maybe we don't need to go into that right now, but there is something compelling about routine. And we covered this in previous episode a lot, because it actually takes your mind out of this. It takes out the decision making. Should I not? It creates this flow that you are about to do that.
Yes.
What I'm wondering is how is this really what we could call personal growth, or does it cover all of it? For me, I think what's interesting are these more subtle elements. If I say how many push-ups I can do, of course, it could be subsumed under the umbrella of personal growth. But if I use a very lofty expression now, am I growing as a person? Am I being a better version of myself in spiritual way, in terms of the way I see the world, I treat others. And this is so subtle that it's difficult I kind of struggle putting a number on it. And a cross is basically a number. It's a binary measure. It's 1 or 0. I know there are techniques that use, gratitude journaling, which is something I experimented with, and maybe other methods. And I would like to touch upon those as well. But first of all, Raphael, how do you feel about this? Would you say there's a subtle something, even ethereal, that shouldn't be messed with by a number?
I don't know if it shouldn't be messed with. I think it's important to decide for yourself. And I'm glad this is a good place to segue into transformation versus growth, which we recently discussed in one of the courses that you and I are just finished together. And I think this is very personal. We often look to others for what we should do. And I can tell you that I often don't know what I should do. So I'm certainly not going to tell you what you should do or tell somebody else what they should do. I can tell you what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, and I can suggest you experiment with this or that. Now, having hundreds of X's on your calendars that essentially say, I've done this habit for X amount of days, isn't necessarily a marker of growth. It's really just a marker that says, I did this thing. Now, how that thing is serving you in your life is up to you to decide. And I think that's a whole nother conversation. How do we measure? How do we know if these types of things are serving us? And again, it comes back to defining your own success. Just having a clear idea, or even an unclear idea of, where you are now and what is it that you would like your experience in life to be like? And are these things helping you achieve that? I've been asking myself these questions a lot, looking into the motivations that are keeping me kind of pursuing other things. For instance, getting into coaching while I'm deep in my current industry of cannabis cultivation. I could certainly put all of my attention into that. And I had to ask myself, what's motivating me to go outside of what I'm currently doing? Is it a need for some kind of validation from others? Is it a need to attach something else to my identity and to feel more accomplished and more validated? And I don't really have the clear answers to these questions. For me, I'm feeling like I'm immersed in this world of coaching and personal development anyway, even well before I had any interest in doing it for work professionally in any way. And so I thought, why not? Why not play both ways? Why not, rather than just kind of consuming and taking all this in, be more of a conduit and letting this work kind of flow multi-directionally. So I kind of got sidetracked there with that, but I think we started to touch on this question. So yeah, I don't think there's a clear answer. I think it's really personal and something that we have to continuously reinvestigate for ourselves. And it may very well be that 6 months from now, you discover that some of the habits or lifestyle changes that you thought would lead to whatever it is that you're after had a very different impact than what you had hoped, or maybe no impact at all.
That sounds hopeful.
Yeah.
But let's start with that then. You mentioned the coaching. I think that's a good example of kind of soft KPI. The people in Amazon would say maybe what would be the measure you can put on that? Suppose, how do you know if you are becoming a better coach? How much better, right? How do you know if you're becoming a better people leader, a better spouse, and or a parent? How are you becoming a better neighbor? And all of these things are difficult to measure. You can kind of feel there's a progress in there, but there seemed to be something missing for me. So I can tell there's progress in my good days, but sometimes I can't. So I was wondering, is there a way you are able to assess for yourself? Am I becoming better in those subtler areas that are difficult to put number on?
That's an excellent question, Ales. I would say that simply by posing this question and by making this investigation on a regular basis, you are making progress towards being a better neighbor, better spouse, better parent, because you care. If you care enough to look closely and to look continuously at how you are behaving and how you are showing up in the world and in your relationships, then you're probably making little adjustments here and there. And you're probably learning to clean up your mess. So I can, give an example with parenting. I can tell you that compared to several years ago, I'm a lot slower to anger. I'm quicker to recover from a breakdown in the household. And I'm noticing my children model similar behaviors. So yesterday was a good example. It was kind of a normal day here. We had a lot of like Legos and Play-Doh and all kinds of things out. And at one point, the kids got into a very kind of aggressive argument with each other. And there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of this and that. And it could have easily kind of, that energy could have stuck around well into the evening. But an hour later, everybody was just kind of sitting around laughing together like nothing had ever happened. And I took note of that mentally. I said, wow, I'm seeing my kids model the same kind of ability to recover from a screw up, if you will, or from a less than skillful reaction to something. And that made me feel a sense of pride. And so I view that as some sort of progress. Again, the fact that you're even asking these questions, I think, puts you ahead of the curve and implies that you care enough to be looking and asking yourself this. So I'd say that alone makes you a better neighbor, friend, leader.
I really can tell, and I think we mentioned that earlier as well, that in certain situations, the best measure, even though it's not precise enough, I can't put it into a spreadsheet, would be this timeout of anger, timeout of frustration.
Yeah.
So as you said, the depth and the duration of these kind of unpleasant or undesirable, I would say, reactions to the world.
Yes.
So
yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's something that feels real when it comes to the ability to operate in the area of choice, which maybe sounds more abstract than it should. So let's use a practical example. I'm gonna show it here. Actually, I think I showed it before. So this is a good example for me. So I don't know, Raphael, if I share this with you. So what happened to me some months ago is, of course, I have electric stove, and I left the lid from the Tupperware on the stove, and this happened. So now it's kind of useless. And I realized these were the moments. This was actually one of the moments that were very valuable for me, because I realized, oh, this is the exact type of situation when 5 years ago I would be tossing stuff around, or I would be blaming myself. Oh, Ales, you're an idiot. How come you did this? You knew, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to handle situation like this in a very light way, without excessive judgment, without excessive remorse or anger. And I treasure these moments. I mean, not for the damaged Tupperware, but for this insight, for this ability to kind of see back to my past self and realizing that there is progress.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example, Ales. And often we have a slip or we behave in an unskillful way, and we see that as a loss, as a screw up. But that recognition, I think, is a win. Another example is during a formal meditation session. Often our mind wanders. This is very natural, even for seasoned meditators. When I first started meditating, I viewed this as a problem. Oh, there I go off again. There's my mind again. I'm never going to be able to get this right. And I slowly started identifying to that very differently, and saw that it is rather as a failure, as an opportunity to return to being present. The Buddhist teacher Joseph Goldstein, I'm sure you're familiar with him, had a wonderful thing that he said. He talked about recognitions per minute, just like revolutions per minute on a car. How many recognitions per minute are you experiencing? So how many times in a minute are you having a moment of clear seeing, a moment of real presence, of being aware? I think that's a wonderful indicator of progressing in mindfulness. That's one example. And what you were describing, the duration, or as Sam Harris has said it many times, the half-life of a negative emotion, having a shorter half-life. I really like that term for this application.
So I think this is like an ongoing practice, something to keep reminding oneself. Suppose we're looking for something more tactical in here. So maybe I need a crutch, which I do in many areas of my life, or a springboard, whatever we're going to call it. I'm wondering how to do that. So I'll share what methods of kind of soft tracking I used and what worked for me. And I'm going to come clean. Currently, I'm not doing that. I want to go back to that. I'm now looking into my, streak of gratitude journaling. So what I think it's Tim Ferriss recommending is the morning pages or journaling. I'm not sure if it's Tim Ferriss or James Clear. I think it's Tim Ferriss, one of the bald guys, I guess. Anyway, it's so what I did every morning. It took me 15 minutes. I wrote a gratitude journal when I actually answered a couple of questions. One of them was, what am I grateful for from the previous day? The second was, what was the lesson learned? So what was something small? It could have been very, very tiny that I learned the day before. And it could have been, learning that I'm less angry in some situations. Or it could have been learning, oh, I'm more angry actually in those situations. Let's dive deeper. So that would be gratitude, what I'm grateful for, what I learned. And there's one other thing that I put in there, and that's based on the book that has a cheesy title that's called Make Time. But what they suggest there is journal about the highlight of your day and plan it in advance. So looking in the morning at your day and deciding what is going to be your highlight, what is going to be the high point. And doing that, just answering these three questions, there was a little more, and then I went into planning the day. But this helped me a lot. And it set the day for me in a very positive, productive way. I felt some sense of accomplishment. And the highlight of my day, now looking at the history of it, that's very powerful. It's measuring, but at the same time, it's projecting. Because I looked at my agenda and I projected my state of mind into a future activity. So instead of looking at the meeting I was going to have with a stakeholder, like, I have day full of meetings, I said, oh, this one is actually going to be the highlight, because that's an awesome person I have a chance to connect after 2 months of not talking to them, and it's always very pleasant. It's not a chore. I decided at the moment what's going to be my highlight. So measuring works as planning here, and it's soft. It was narrative. There was no number on it. Worked like a charm for me.
I like that, Ales. Yeah, I like that. Having something to look forward to is an incredible motivator. I happen to be very, very food motivated. So if I schedule going out to eat with my family, I get very excited about doing that. It's very motivating to me to want to get out of the house and go have dinner or go have lunch together with my family or a friend. So I think that, creating things in your schedule that you can look forward to and tracking in that way. I have to be honest, journaling is something that I have not made a regular practice. That is something that just has not stuck for me. I journal my training sessions, my physical training sessions, and kind of, how much of this I did and how much of that. But beyond that, it just hasn't stuck for me. Something I'd like to continue experimenting with. Maybe I need to try a streak feature. I'm
wondering, here's the deal with the measuring and tracking. And if you know, if anyone who's watching is like me, they're gonna understand this. So usually, I'm the kind of guy who liked, and I would say liked in the past, to set up fairly elaborate system of tracking. So I was about to track everything, and I tracked it for a couple of days. Then I failed one day in one of the variables. Usually I was trying to track 10 things at a time, and I failed at some, and then I kind of fell off the horse and never come back. And then I started to resent the tracker I lovingly created at the beginning, because it brought the feelings of shame, the feelings of failure. Instead of helping me, it was actually hurting me, and it was making me feel terrible. And I'm sure this is a problem for tons of people who are trying to lose weight. No pun intended in there. So I mean the high number of people, and it's something I never learned how to overcome. So Raphael, I was wondering, is that something that you ever experienced with that, and how did you handle that? How did you bridge that moment where you can fall into self-loathing and just despair?
Maybe you can reframe that question in a way that I can answer it more easily.
So did you ever break the streak and felt bad about it? And if you did, what did you use, or how did you approach it to get back on the horse? And well, period, I guess.
Great question. Stay tuned next week when I tell you how I recovered, because so yesterday was Monday. It was scheduled to be a kettlebell day. I struggled incredibly to get to my training, and when I did it, it was terrible. I went through the motions and I got a few sets in, but like I explained to you with the caffeine withdrawal, I felt like I was wearing a lead suit, and I was incredibly hard on myself about it. You should be able to do this. So that's a very well-timed question, Alesh, because here I am today. I would say that compared to the training session from the previous week, it was at like 15% of what it was previously. And this is something that I've managed to keep up for the last 8 months or so. So what was interesting to me, and this is where the mindfulness practice can be super useful, I was able to notice this attachment I had to having to do the thing, and kind of loathing and mourning the loss, the perceived loss of what I will lose by not showing up fully to this training session that I'd committed to doing. And so I'm holding the intention of coming back very strongly to it for the next session. So shit happens, things come up, emergencies happen, people get sick, visitors come, and things will throw you off your schedule. When I had house guests in April for 2 weeks, it was incredibly difficult to stick to my routines. I did, but it came at a great cost, and my spouse was very upset with me for several days, and her mother wasn't very happy with me. And so there was some juggling that needed to be done, and I decided that in the future, it would make more sense for me to ease up a little bit, or at least restructure my days to where it wasn't interfering with my visitors, rather than tell myself that my visitors or my interruptions in my life weren't going to interfere with my training. So things are going to happen, and the way we recover is more important than the streak. The next workout doesn't care about the last workout. The next meditation session, it doesn't matter how long you've been practicing. If you, Sam has said it so many times, if you come out of your formal meditation session only to fire off an angry email or get angry with your spouse or whatever the case may be. So let's remember why we're doing these things. Most of us are looking for a greater sense of well-being, more equanimity, more peace, more balance in our life. And what I have found is if we stick too rigidly to things, the stress and suffering that we can create for ourselves can have more negative impact than the benefit that we're getting from the activity itself. So it's very important to measure and kind of feel that out. Now, it's a slippery slope because we can often use that as an excuse to drop whatever it is we're doing. Like, oh, I shouldn't be so rigid with my diet. Excuse me. So I'll give you an example with nutrition. I have gone through various stages in my life where I was very rigid with my nutrition, and I still am. But what I found was when I slipped occasionally, or if I was out with my family and decided to have pizza or something like that, I would beat myself up to the point where I was certainly causing myself more stress and damage than the pizza was. So being able to kind of ease up and just have be forgiving with yourself, but that doesn't mean let yourself off the hook. So you're going to slip, but just pay attention, and only you can answer the question of whether you're using it as an excuse to let yourself off the hook again and again and again, or just having some reasonable compassion for yourself when you inevitably veer off your trajectory or off the path a little bit. So getting back in line. I missed yesterday. The next one, I feel like there are choice points. So if you miss one session, you miss a session. Now, if you start to miss the second and the third, you're kind of making a decision that's saying, I'm letting go of this. That doesn't mean that's wrong. Maybe that's the right thing for you. But just pay attention to those choice points, those days, the second missed whatever it is that you're doing. And for me, I find that those are the days that are the utmost importance. And those are the days over the last 8 months, Alesh, that kept me consistent with my training. There were countless days where I felt horrible and I did not want to do it. And I said, I'm just going to go through the motions. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick up this kettlebell. I'm going to swing it around. And if it sucks and if I feel lousy and weak and I beat myself up, so be it. I'm going to do it anyway. And that has been the biggest difference in what has kept me consistent.
Yeah, no, I'm realizing that this is very transferable advice, I'd say. So I've been thinking about what we've been doing here together, Raphael. So the commitment was like, let's kind of keep showing up week after week, not to care if anyone's watching, and just making it part of our practice, of our exercise, and getting the most of it. And
yes,
as with exercise, as with physical regimen, we can reevaluate, but we don't want to be running away from that. And speaking of measurement, I didn't really, I didn't keep track of all the details. I am, Raphael, just this is for you and for everyone in here, but I never told you, I think, in detail. I am beating myself up for the way I'm setting up those sessions. I'm looking at it, I'm like, hey, so I thought that by now I'm gonna be able to do it, months in advance. I'm gonna have it all structured and everything is gonna be clean and predictable, and it's not the case. So sometimes I manage, sometimes I don't. So I see just the fact that I'm not able to raise the bar visibly in those tangible variables as a failure. However, looking back at I just went on LinkedIn, by the way, and I created a hashtag for us, which is like Ales and Raphael, and I hashtagged all the old recordings, just out of vanity, I guess. And I watched like a couple of seconds of some of the early ones, and I see, oh man, we are getting better at this. I mean, maybe not you. You look relaxed and completely at ease from the start, I guess. But I feel like, yeah, I'm less jumpy. I'm able to handle technical glitches. It's more immediate. It's hard to put a number on it, but there is progress, and that's the type of progress I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Still got some work to do. I don't know if you can hear my kids having cereal and playing video games in the background. So
Not really, but I'm envious.
Well, maybe it's because I muted the mic. Guys, you do need to keep that down, please, and take it into the other room. This is live parenting, streaming to multiple platforms at once. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a muscle like anything else, Alesh. It's, you train it, you get more confident. It becomes kind of. I look forward to these sessions now, and it was a little bit uncertain at first. Are we going to stick with it? Are we going to do it? What's it going to be like? What are we going to talk about? And now it feels a little bit more fluid. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I will do, however, raise the bar a little. I wanna try to use a different streaming software and something more elaborate. But that's gonna be a surprise, once I get it set up. For the talks themselves, I like the perspective in here, like looking back at something a year ago or 2 years ago. Maybe sometimes I think it's a perspective that we are looking at a micro level. So I'm going to use the weight loss in here as an example. So trying to lose weight from day to day or even from week to week, it just doesn't work, right? It's like trying to watch your we said, watch your nail grow. It's just very, very slow. But looking back at a year ago, when I thought I wouldn't think it was possible, I wouldn't have done that if someone told me, hey, you're going to be live streaming every week. I said, no. Yeah, sure, no. And now I'm like, yeah, of course I'm live streaming. And sometimes I'm hating it. I'm like, yeah, I decided to do this every week instead of having a free evening. But it became part of my capacity now. I'm capable of doing that, and it's no longer unachievable or impossible goal. It's just reality. So dealing with this mundane part of it, that whatever achievement you ever reach is going to become just part of your new normal. I think that's
yeah,
part.
The moving goalpost. In the book, I believe it's in *Sapiens*, Yuval Noah Harari writes, when conditions improve, expectations balloon. And that is incredibly true. If you look back, think about the desires, the goals that you had. You at one point you wished for many of the things that you have now, and now you have them, and of course they're replaced. So there really is no arriving. There really is no rest. And so that just highlights the importance of creating an experience that you can enjoy now and not delaying your happiness. Now, obviously, if you're in some sort of abusive situation or truly a bad situation that you need to remove yourself from, that's different. The point is, don't delay that feeling. Allow yourself to fully experience life with where you are now, and you're responsible for creating that, I would argue. Yeah,
I guess so. And this is really me thinking and not having anything in mind. I'm trying to find a way, or I think I'm going to try to solidify a little bit this look back at my previous self a year ago or so, because in some areas it's easy, but the funny part about trekking is, as you said, Raphael, like you can change your path. You can decide to stop doing something. You can readjust. So it's difficult to know what to track. If I'm going to start tracking my I don't know, knitting skills, and I'm going to start knitting, and then I may drop it, I may hate it, and I realize I love paddleboarding, and I didn't track my way to get to this. I don't have the streak. So maybe my question here is, what would be the milestones? What would be things that are sensible to track no matter what? Would it be something like that, Raphael, that you think maybe over your adult life, you think that it makes sense to pay attention to this variable or that one, while the other ones are more fungible?
Sure. Well, for me, I would say my relationships are a good indicator of how I'm doing, the way I'm relating with my children and my spouse and my friends, and how engaged I am. If I'm kind of keeping quiet and not reaching out too much and kind of contracting, that's a sign that I'm in my own head and kind of distracted. I think this is a very nuanced and personal question that is pretty difficult to answer. But for me, I would say, am I waking up with some kind of exuberance or some kind of enthusiasm for the day, or am I dreading that feeling? Like, how are you feeling when how are you bookending your days? What is your state of mind like when you first wake up in the morning, that first 30 minutes or so, as well as when you put your head down on the pillow? What are the things going on through your mind? I find that those first and last minutes of the day are an excellent indicator of what's in and out of balance in your life. I know for myself, if there are some very important tasks that I am pushing aside, procrastinating on, they will haunt me. They will show up first thing in the morning, evening when I go to bed, and sometimes in the middle of the night. And so I feel like that's a pretty good place to start looking. But depending on what your work life is like, this may be a never-ending stream of superficial concerns. And so then I would say that that's a good time to kind of implement practices that help you notice but not identify with those things as they come and go. And if they're more personal, if they're kind of like, this is the same thing that keeps showing up for me every day for months or years, that might be something that is worth looking into. Maybe it's a personal goal. Maybe it's something to do with your fitness or your nutrition or your relationship or your job, something that you feel a deep sense of wanting to make a change or start moving in a different direction, yet you're not sure how or what to do about it. If something keeps showing up consistently like that, I would say that that's a pretty good place to look. And so I hope this answers your question, but I think that the state of mind that you're in when you first wake up, now we all know what it's like to go to bed feeling pretty good and suddenly wake up feeling like crap and suddenly have, a whole bag full of concerns and things that are bothering us. So that doesn't necessarily mean things are going wrong. But if this is happening on a consistent basis, I'd say that is a pretty good indicator that things are out of balance. If you're waking up without any enthusiasm for the day, kind of dreading getting going and not really wanting to engage with life, that might be something to take a look at.
You got me something to think about, because that's absolutely true, for me at least. That's what matters, actually. And I just recalled a pretty famous movie with Bill Murray, the Groundhog Day, and if you haven't watched that, you absolutely have to, and I mean it. You have to watch it. It's a very deep message of a man who keeps waking up to the same day. He's kind of stuck in a time loop. And in his case, similarly to your case or my case, most of the days are kind of the same. And what he changes is the attitude. Throughout the journey, he wakes up to the same reality, but his attitude makes all the difference. And more often than not, that's true for all of us.
That is an excellent point, Alesh. I haven't watched that movie in many decades. I think I saw it when I was a kid, if I'm not mistaken. This is a very old film, right? Like 80s or 90s. Okay, there you go. So yeah, I'm sure I watched it in the 90s. I'll have to rewatch it maybe with the kids. But that is a huge point. Changing your attitude, changing your expectations is a much faster and more efficient way to change your experience than changing your circumstances. And it's also a great practice ground for creating some equanimity in your life, regardless of your circumstances. You know, if we're at the mercy of our circumstances, which we all are to a degree, right? We've talked about the swinging pendulum. Things are going great. Things are going awful. How much in the center can you remain while all these external things are brewing? You know, there are a million things we could be concerned about. I was on a Zoom call last night with my small group that I'll be working with this weekend. It's a group mostly of doctors and therapists and coaches and medicine guides and things like that. And a lot of folks are having deep concerns about climate change and anxiety about fire season coming up here in California and the drought and things like that. And these are things that for the most part are out of our control. Obviously we can do our part, and you can, educate, and you can be part of these things. But, things like wildfires, short of not starting one yourself or contributing to the conditions that help create them, these are things that are out of our control. So, do we live in fear, and do we continue to be at the whim of whatever we see on our social media feed, on the news, or whatever's going on in our life at the time? Or can we begin to develop a sense of stability within ourselves that is not dependent on our external circumstances? And this is not something that we suddenly arrive at and go, and the timer dings and it's like the bread is ready out of the oven. This is a lifelong process. It's not linear. You're going to zig and zag. You're going to go sideways. You're going to have bad days, weeks, maybe even months. But if you continue to focus your attention in this way, you will continue to develop, to spend more time in that grounded place. I've heard it said, it's kind of like when you first begin a mindfulness practice, your default is this kind of state of distraction and incessant thought, and you visit the way that consciousness already is, which is more, kind of calm and just the way that it is. And as you continue deepening your practice, you spend more time in that state, and the occasional sprints to the distraction become less and less. And I think it takes many, many years to develop this, but that the taste of it is available to anyone now. So it's not as if you have to wait many decades to experience this. You can experience it right now, and you can spend more and more time in that place if you practice and if you focus your attention in that way.
Yeah. And I think from this is a nice way to kind of close it, because that really means that the measurement or the tracker you use, it is the aid. It can kind of aid you on the journey, but it only serves you if it serves you. Otherwise, if it's a blocker, don't bother.
That's right.
In the areas where it would block you. And one thing it's not actually from the Groundhog Day movie, but it's related to it, is the idea of forgiveness, because you can start any day, of course. So to Raphael's point, yeah, you broke your streak, but it doesn't matter if you do the next workout. It's about how you get back on the horse. And
That's
as with the Groundhog Day movie, every day you start afresh in a way. You go to sleep,
Yeah.
you die a little, and you wake up with a new day that is
That's it.
yours, and
That's it.
you start
And
over.
that's an excellent point. And we've talked about this before. Even recovering your current day. I have days where I suddenly found that I've spent way more time than I want to on my phone, and I'm feeling kind of sluggish and tired. And I could continue that way, or I could turn my phone off, do a yoga practice, go for a hike, go for a walk, take a cold shower, read a book. Like, there are countless things you can do to shift your whole day and turn it around and like end with a win. And I used this term before, but pay attention to how you bookend your days. What are you doing first thing in the morning? What are you doing before bed? A lot of people are going straight to the phone. I've been guilty of that myself. I find that it really increases my chances of having a less than optimal day. And so, find something that works for you. Find a way to just be in stillness or whatever kind of activity it works for you. And experiment. Let us know how it goes. And as always, let us know what you'd like to hear us discuss, what you didn't like, what you want more of. Tell us you think we're dorks, whatever it is.
Sounds good to me.
We'll take it.
What are we going to talk about next time, Raphael? Any idea?
It's a good question, Alesh.
Pre-commit.
Yeah. You want to commit now?
Oh, and I know it's more beneficial, so I can pre-commit to be here, and we're going to be here at the same time and
I'll
next
be here.
week.
Yes, short of some disaster, I am committed to being here.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be a real bad disaster. I mean, if it's just like a kind of a disaster, I will live stream from the disaster, and we'll let the viewers in on the action. So I mean, like, I have to, be unable to speak or have several broken bones or something. We'll be here.
Awesome. So, Raphael, I have an idea. That's something that we wanted to tackle. We are circling around that all the time. What if we talked about devices we use? Because you talk about screen time. We never dedicated an episode to this, and I'm sure
I love this. This is great. Let's do that. And I'm happy to report. I told you I'm preparing for a ceremony this weekend. So Saturday I will be completely free of any devices. I will be in a very day-long meditation, and so I'll be unplugged, and it'll be a great opportunity. And we can check back in. We didn't even really discuss how it was going with the YouTube or any of that, which is great. We were kind of in the zone today, and I love that. So great idea. Let's talk about devices, our relationship to them, and how we can have a more empowered relationship with them.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Raphael. Thank everybody.
Thank you, Alesh. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Bye.